Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 82. Woo. 82, Changing Supervisors, the Student Perspective. Now, a lot goes wrong in the doctoral education space. Bad stuff does happen, but it doesn't get sadder, except I think when a PhD student and a supervisor separates. That wrongness of that space and that wrongness of that relationship can have profound impacts on students and on staff and indeed on the institution. So I wanted to talk with Bronwyn, Lovell and Chivaura today, these two wonderful women. Hello.
Hello.
Because they both capture the full gamut of the challenges that exist in this space. They're both incredibly brilliant. The university is incredibly lucky to have them, but they do capture, I think, a lot of the problems and the issues and the challenges that emerge here, because Bronwyn is an Australian domestic PhD student, but moved states to come and do the PhD at Flinders, and Sunny is an international student who's joined us from the United Kingdom, moved countries to come to Australia to do a PhD. Then some stuff went wrong and then had to move states once more while she was in Australia. Quite an interesting saga. So both of these students have changed supervisors during their candidature, and they're not alone. By a lot of studies done in this area, about 40% of PhD students do change one or more of their supervisors during their candidature. Now, some of those changes are caused by the student, and some are caused by the supervisor. But the problem, I think, is a culture of blame and shame and name calling, and a lack of respect starts to emerge in this space. And so what these vlogs are about is to find a way to do, and I'm going to quote Gwyneth Paltrow, which is always a mistake, but to try and find a way to do conscious uncoupling. So how we actually go, it's time for a change, let's all get cool with this and make the change happen with decency and kindness and respect. So let's use the insights of what you've both been through to help both students and supervisors, because this vlog today is a double purpose. It's for our wonderful students at Flinders, but it's also helping supervisors improve their practice. So thank you both for being with us today. So Sunny, you did move countries to enact a PhD and complete your education. You moved from the UK to Australia. Is there something that international students could and should do before they arrive in a new country? How and should they engage with their supervisors, do you think, to check what's going on?
I think I was just unaware of the relationship that you have with the PhD supervisor, because although I'd done honours and a master's, you're in a class with other people, so you don't really get to know them one-on-one. It's sort of when you do your coursework or when you see them for your thesis, that's when you see them. But I think if I had actually contacted the uni and asked for my supervisor's details, that would have aided me in sort of better understanding, that, and having a supervisor relationship prior to my start date.
I think that's great. And also Skype could have made a real difference.
Yes.
So actually contacting the supervisor or prospective supervisor before, do you think you might have managed the situation better and maybe realised there was a problem coming if you had done that?
Yes, because for me the biggest thing was being admitted into a PhD program, that everything else came sort of secondary. And I thought, I had no experience of what a PhD was like. I did not know that it would be me and my supervisor and that's it. I thought there would be an induction maybe, where I meet other students, we're in a room, I meet my supervisor that way, and that's not how it panned out in reality. So I guess I should have been more proactive in establishing those links rather than just being satisfied with attaining a PhD position.
Because of course you only do one in your life, you get terribly excited that you've got an entry into a program. And also, Sunny, that's maybe an important point for international students too. Your first enrolment was at a regional university, so in really a country town. And so there's some very different experiences you have in a regional hub compared to a capital city, I think.
Yes, and that was the thing. I mean, in terms of picking a supervisor, I know I'm jumping ahead. I'll go into it more, but it was sort of appointed to me.
Yeah.
I had emailed a few people to say this is what I want to do, and one of them just appeared on my acceptance letter as a supervisor. So yeah, we'll get into that.
We'll get into that, and so Bron, we'll get you to sort of address that point going forward from Sunny's point there. Looking back on it, do you think you, or indeed all of us, when we were students, are too passive in accepting the supervisors as they have been given to us? So I'm always amazed that students aren't more proactive in engaging and getting the best supervisors, but we tend to accept what we're given. Do you think that's a challenge? Is it passivity?
Well, for me, the reason I came from Interstate was for my supervisor. So I knew Dr. Alice Gorman through circles in the space community, and I thought she was fabulous. And what she does is a very new area of research, and she was, at the time, I think one of only about 4 space archaeologists in the world, and so I wanted to do a study into the culture of space, but as a creative writer, so my PhD was going to be in creative writing, but I wanted this a supervisor who was in archaeology. So I came to Flinders. At first I was going to study externally, and then I found, no, I really want to be on campus and to really be part of the PhD experience. I felt removed from it, interstate, and I felt it very difficult. But it was my supervisor which recommended a supervisor in creative writing. I did actually meet with him, and it went really well, and I thought that this would be a good team, and then I decided to go ahead with the application.
Right, fascinating. But can I just say, Ron's raised something amazing there that I didn't think. That's why we asked the students, because you're amazing, is when you've got interdisciplinary theses, that selection of supervisors probably becomes even more challenging.
Absolutely. There may, in terms of being passive, there also may not be someone for you in my situation. And again, I might be jumping ahead, but I had a supervisor leave the university, and that was my creative writing supervisor, and I was enrolled in a creative writing PhD, and then all I had was my supervisor in archaeology, who had a different approach to when it came time for me to do my research proposal. So I passed the presentation, but my report actually failed because it wasn't what creative writing expected. It wasn't in an essay format. I had done it differently, and until that point, the university had told me there was no room for me in creative writing. There was no other supervisor who could take me on, so I had only the one supervisor for a while.
Well, you've really raised there the interdisciplinary challenge. I hadn't even thought of that, and that's a nightmare. It's a nightmare in terms of moving it through a confirmation of candidature.
Yes.
And so we really need to be thinking about a functional interdisciplinary team. Oh wow, you've had that's going to change a lot of what we do at this university from what you've just said there, so very powerful. But Sunny, looking back at your former university experience, do you think you were passive? Is that a word you would use?
I think I was ill-prepared. Because it is quite a big jump from masters to do a PhD. I mean, it's a big jump from moving from London to Bathurst. That's a big jump too. But I would say I was proactive in the things I could not do. There were some challenges as well with communication and communicating with said appointed supervisor. Because when I finally arrived in Australia a month before commencement, I thought I would reach out to the supervisor, but it being summer, a lot of people are away, don't check their uni emails, and then upon commencement, on the day I was supposed to start, I was told he was off to work in a European country, so he wouldn't be my supervisor after all. So I guess I sort of panicked, and I had 2 people approach me and say, we'll supervise you, out of the blue. So in not knowing the Australian system, in not having the confidence to check out these people because they held quite high positions within the department, I sort of said yes. And being new to Australia being new to regional New South Wales, it was just sort of, all happening at once, and I just wanted to get off to a good start and just roll with it.
And I think you've also captured something else really important there, Sunny, that PhD students need to remember that they're very, very precious. And in certain institutions, probably nay, all institutions, supervisors need you. They need you for their CVs because your presence enables either their publishing or their career or their articles or the PhD completion. I wouldn't hire anybody that doesn't have PhD completion. So when supervisors step away, it's not surprising other supervisors go,
swoop in. And this is the knowledge I did not have. I had known academics, but I'd never known anyone to undertake a PhD in Australia. So for me, those were some of the maybe alarm bells that should have been going off, but did not, because I thought, oh, great, I'm not alone. I've got these two people, leaping to take the chance to supervise me.
I had the opposite experience.
Were you left on the shelf, darling?
Yes. After my creative writing supervisor left the university, I was not passive. I actually emailed other people in the department that I thought had some relevance with my studies, my research topic, and I was told there was no room at the inn. There was no room in creative writing. They'd already taken on some extra students. I had people writing back saying, sorry, I already had 10 students, and there was nobody who would take me in creative writing. So I found myself for about nearly a year, I would say a year of my PhD candidature in creative writing with no creative writing supervisor.
Oh wow. And again, that is the interdisciplinary mess, isn't it? That's the disaster. We've got a supervisor, but we need another, and we need a supervisor that grabs both areas, both paradigms.
And still, I don't have a poet, and I'm doing a poetry project, and there were a couple of poets who have both left the university now, and we don't have a poet in creative writing.
We need a poet. Every university needs a poet. But can I also say that's another issue, noting the baby boomer, generational profile of Australian universities, is that a lot of those guys and gals are retiring or have retired. So that's another way you lose a supervisor as well, because they retire or leave for many reasons. For the pair of you, is there something looking backwards, so hindsight 2020, is there something you could have negotiated at the start that would have rendered this process a little bit more effective? So Sunny, we might start with you. Is there something you could have done that could have changed this and improved it for you?
Definitely having more confidence. And I know I've been going on and on, but it's speaking up to someone who holds rank above you. I thought whatever feedback I got, same as when you're doing a bachelor's or honours, master's, the feedback you get determines the mark you get. And in a PhD, that is not always correct. It's correct in some circumstances, but you don't have to just keep accepting the feedback you get. And I think knowing what power I had as a PhD student would have helped, because I found out halfway through my second year of uni that, I'm not just, a sheep and, waiting for my shepherds, to carry me around. And
you're right, it's about empowering the student. I hope my career has been based on empowering students, because you need to know the power that you hold. You are the future of higher education, you are the future of our universities, you are the future of knowledge, and therefore deserve respect. But from your perspective, and it's a very different case, which is why we've picked these two wonderful students, is there anything you could have renegotiated or negotiated at the start that would have made a difference?
I'm not sure that there was, to be honest, because I had met both supervisors and it looked like it was going to be a great team, and life happens, and personal circumstances of my supervisor meant that then he wasn't available, and then eventually also left the university. And And that wasn't something that I could predict.
Very well said, and therefore it's about then the institution coming in and providing a framework around you to support you through that, because you know, people get sick and people leave an institution, people go to different jobs all the time, and a 3-year PhD, that's a long time. And a lot of people come and go in an institution during that time. So it's interesting you say there's probably nothing you could have done at the start. For Sunny, there was. Now, Bron, we just want to talk about your rare field, because there's lots of rare fields that exist in higher education, from the hard sciences right the way through to the high humanities. But when you are working in a rare field and a rare genre of research, does it make it more challenging to select supervisors? And what advice would you offer to people in sort of interesting, quirky, small areas of scholarship?
Yeah, it is difficult, and so I'm doing science fiction verse poetry, so it's very specific, as well as looking at women in space in real life and in fiction. So it's quite niche, and I'm extremely passionate about my subject, and I think when you are looking at one little area, your supervisors necessarily, they're going to know a certain area, but they're not going to know that focus that you're looking at. So you do have to find your own way, and there will not always be supervisors for you. So in my team at the moment, I have a Jane Austen scholar.
Which everybody needs in their life.
Who was somebody at a point where there was only my archaeology supervisor and nobody across creative writing. This is someone from English who just done her supervisor training and was actually interested in my project. And
huge.
And I got the advice that, and I think it was very good advice, that you need someone who knows research, and I don't know research, I'm here to learn that as a PhD student. And so sometimes they may not necessarily have to be in your field to be able to offer you some of the expertise that you need.
I think that's a really important point, and there's particularly in interdisciplinary areas, but you know, knowledge is a big thing, and there's so many different types of compatibility that you require: intellectual, genre-based, disciplinary, theoretical-based, methodology. Sonny, have you got a vibe on this?
Yes, just going back to what Bronwyn said, in terms of supervisors and the knowledge they bring to the table, that is something I took for granted. I did not question it. However, when I realized, you know, 2.5 years in, that these people did not have the expertise I needed, and they were leading me down a track that they were comfortable with, but it was not my PhD. And I went along with it thinking, they know everything, therefore I have to follow this because I cannot challenge them.
And the consequences of that, and Sunny, you might want to extend on this, but one of the consequences of Sunny doing that is she wrote 30,000 words in her PhD that never saw the light of day.
Yes.
Okay, 30,000 wasted words.
Yeah, it's for me, being an international student and paying, you know, fees, I had to make every day count. There was no, I've got another 27 grand in the bank, I'll just, keep topping up. So for me, it was sort of like when I realized that in actual fact, I had maybe 10,000 usable words, which were my research proposal, my confirmation of candidature document, and everything else that I had done was just not good. And it's a challenging thought knowing I've only done 10,000 words and I'm supposed to finish within a year. I needed that realization, and fortunately I had a great team that just, kickstarted my passion again, reignited my confidence, and from there it just went supersonic, and I am grateful beyond.
Well, and so Sunny finished in 2 years, 10 months.
Yes.
with all of this 2 years, 10 months, and of course she is Dr. Sunniru Chivaura too, so she went through with absolute flying colours, 2 years, 10 months, extraordinary. Two of the best examiners on the planet examined her, so it was a remarkable achievement. So, but I think intellectually you've captured that point. I want to go back, if I can, Bron, to the personal aspect, which I think is really dead crucial. And how important is personal compatibility to engaging with your supervisors? There's the intellectual stuff, which is crucial, content, but that personal stuff, mate.
Absolutely, and that's why I was very happy to have my supervisor, Dr. Gillian Dooley, come on board, who was interested in my project and thought it had promise. And we had approached, my primary supervisor had approached a couple of people that might have been relevant, and you know, there wasn't the same enthusiasm. And my supervisor said, if they're not interested, we're not going to convince anyone to come on the team for my PhD. We want people who want to be there. So you need people who believe in you and what you're doing, and without that belief, it's hard.
It can dissipate, because we talk a lot about the motivation in students. You know, you guys have got to be motivated, but the supervisor's got to be absolutely turbocharged. Like, this is exciting. We're doing this. I'm excited. This is brilliant. Let's get this through. This is brilliant, and we mustn't lose that. You know, you must come into the meeting and know that we are focusing on you. We care about you, and the time you have with us is precious. And other stuff doesn't get involved in that. You know, you are precious. The project is precious. So that personal stuff, I think, really matters. And I think when we see stuff go wrong, it's often not intellectual. It's often personal, you know, and I don't know how we handle that. And I mean, Bron, we'll keep going with you if we can, because you did hit a moment of crisis with one of your supervisors. Looking back on it now, was there any way to prevent that sparking moment of crisis?
Again, I'm not too sure that there was.
Wow, this is fascinating.
You're going to be yourself, and you always have to be yourself. And when, you know, if you're a very warm person, and your relationships with your supervisors can be, you know, really personal and intimate, and there's a line there that you have to be careful of, and I think sometimes, you know, should one be more, keep more of a professional relationship, but again, is that really being yourself? And so
negotiating that personal, professional thing is really complicated in the doctoral space. And done.
When I did have a separation with the supervisor, I actually did go to university counselling to help, which I'd really recommend to other students in this situation, and they helped me formulate the wording of an email that would help me make that separation really clear, and that was incredibly helpful. So having the support of those university services is really important, and I think definitely use them.
Really powerful. This is a very deep and complicated relationship. And I mean, Sunny, you've had to put up with, you know, Steve and I. So you had a married couple too as a supervisory relationship. As we were her second iteration. So we were Star Trek: The Next Generation. But I suppose we're very old and very experienced. So we had a sense of, you know, great intimacy and connection and communication with you. But we were very clear about lines and borders and boundaries and things, I think. Did we ever overtly state that to you, or was it?
No, it was just how you supervise both Tara and Steve in the hour, in the half an hour, in the coffee catch-up you have. It's intense, and you get down to the real point, and it's sort of like, wow, I need to put this on paper. I only have 7 days till our next meeting. So for me, it was just what I needed. Whereas the previous batch, one of them would invite me to their house, you know, family gatherings, but there would be nothing to do with PhD. Even in our meetings, it seemed as though he was very friendly. How's your dad? How's your brother? You know, but there was nothing to do with the PhD. So it was a bit of the opposite, but not really attaining what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I'd had enough fluff. You know, it's sort of like, let's just get on with it.
Yeah.
And both you and Steve are very warm people, so I never felt, you know, when you go home, oh, Tara hasn't emailed me back, because I knew you would, and I knew you always gave me enough to go away and just, you know, power through.
And for the supervisors who are watching this, I've been thinking about this a lot. Obviously, Bron and I are dear friends. I adore this woman, and I am horrified at some of the journey she's gone on as a scholar. But it has made me think about the nature of the professional and the personal relationship. And I think the difference is, for supervisors out there, I approach everything, all our meetings, as an intellectual, and you are an intellectual. So it is an intellectual conversation.
Yes.
That is delivered from one person to another, right? And so I think it starts with, we are having an intellectual conversation. We want you to be the best and the brightest person on this planet. We are working at the highest level, and we're going to work you hard to get there, but we are hopefully compassionate and kind to get you to that level. But in some ways, it's not probably a friendship. Friendship is there, but I think it starts as you are a colleague and a great scholar and someone we care deeply about. It's almost deeper than a friendship, because you can be mates with somebody.
Yes.
But our relationship with you is close, and we do anything for you. It's a respectful, decent relationship to get you to the next stage of your career. Is that sort of?
I think that's more beneficial than, you know, having a text buddy. I mean, it's because you still need that critique, and you still need someone to check you should things go wrong. And to quote Real House of Atlanta, who's going to check me, boo, if my supervisor is texting me and, you know, we're going out drinking and partying together. So, you know, you have to realize, yes, you're human. Yes, you know, they care about your well-being. If you're stressed, if you're run down, they care. But, you know, ultimately you're here to do a PhD, and they're the team you've selected to help you achieve that. So I think, you know, let's not beat about the bush. It's a continuum, but there has to be a balance.
Yeah, and so, for example, we don't have students around to our house. My students don't have my mobile phone number, but we do use social media a great deal. So, for example, we are friends on Facebook, or friends on just about everything else, because Sunny has control over the way she presents herself to an audience on those platforms. But you don't have my mobile phone number.
And that's fine. I've got you on Twitter. Same thing.
And I don't have your mobile phone because you know, we're not doing a drug deal. We're a supervisor and a student.
Yes, and that's fine. I have no qualms about that. But I've seen relationships, obviously, people get taken advantage of, and some people end up feeling like, oh, I thought we were friends. Why are you being so harsh in your feedback? And, you know, then, you know, the whole point is lost.
And there are some meetings where we've had to be very, very hard on students, and, you know, it's because it's more than friendship, because it's a care. But I wouldn't have had this thought in my head without all the conversations we've had. So, you know, your provocation to think about what is this relationship, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, a supervisor who challenges you is more helpful than someone who says, it's going well, which is something similar I had in my honours. I had an experience of a supervisor who was like, like fine, and then when I had to give a presentation to the rest of the department, I was torn down, the argument was torn down, and I was about 6 weeks away from the end, and I realised, it's, you know, the focus is too big, all of these things, which my supervisor had not, almost had the heart to tell me, and you need to, it needs to be professional there.
Because it is about enabling your career, enabling you as a scholar.
Yes, we don't need...
I was
going to say we don't need you to be nice. Well, we do.
Kindness is important, respect and decency.
It is, that's right.
But also you're a whole person before you come to be supervised by us.
That's true.
You don't need us to complete you as a person. You're a fabulous, astounding person before you enter a PhD program.
But we do respect, value and need almost like rigor. We need that. That's what we need. That's what we're here for. And when my supervisors I've got a third supervisor now, the amazing Dr. Lisa Bennett, and so finally I have someone in creative writing, which was a really great turning point for me. And recently she gave me some feedback on something, and she said she apologised for possibly eviscerating it, and I actually said, thank you so much, because that's what I needed. I didn't need looks good. I needed, there are some problems here, let's get real, and I was able to fix them. Yeah,
and in creative writing in particular, of all the different paradigms, some of the commentary can be quite tough, because it almost sort of has to be, because the nature of the artefact exegesis is the artefact will be handled in a very different way. So really powerful. We're reaching to the end of the questions now. The next one is particularly speaking to our students out there, two wonderful students speaking to students. What would you recommend to ensure that students are safe, that students are protected and don't change supervisors? What would you recommend to everybody out there who want to start with supervisors and finish with the same set?
I would say stalk. Okay, professionally, not
not electronically tagged,
not on the dark web. But every staff member at most universities has to have an academic profile. First of all, skip through the about, go to bibliography, publications. When was the last time they published? Where do they speak? I mean, do they even exist apart from the department? Who else have they worked with? This is something I did not know. In hindsight, now I know that would have served me a great hassle.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would say be honest with yourself. Are you pulling your weight? This is a two-way relationship. It can't always be the supervisor's fault. Are you doing enough to sort of prove that you're ready for this? And it's not just to you, it's to your family, it's to the uni, it's to your career. Because a lot of people, I've had the misfortune or fortune of meeting people who hide behind excuse after excuse after excuse, and it's always somebody else's fault. So be honest. When you look at your thesis, are you happy with it? And lastly, enjoy the process. Yes, it's extremely hard, challenging. You'll go through the trenches, but you'll also have the highest of highs, when things go right, when you do your word count and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm at 60,000, or, I've been published. And hold on to those moments. But, confidence, be honest with yourself, as well as do the work. And the rest will sort of fall into place. We're all human. We have good days, bad days, but have your toolbox of essential tools.
And Sunny is doing incredibly well. Can I just do a big shout out for Sunny in terms of publication? It looks like she's going to have 8 refereed articles and 2 books before Christmas.
We're working on it.
That's pretty powerful. I had an article accepted last week too, so that's fantastic. but what advice would you offer to students?
To students.
So what happened to you doesn't happen to someone else.
Yeah, I don't know how to prevent, because some choose change and some have change thrust upon them, So I don't know that there's a way to prevent some things. Life just happens. But I think that you need to remember that it's your project, and in that if you are in a niche area, which really a lot of us are, because your PhD, that's almost what it is, focusing in on one very specific thing that is new. And having supervisors in different departments and can mean that you can be encouraged to go down different tracks that maybe are not where you want to go. So I know that I'm constantly receiving very different advice from supervisors that are in different departments, and I, at the end of the day, have to negotiate that and take that on board, but remember my project and what my passion is, and what's my interest that is going to keep me able to sustain this, so that I'm doing my PhD, not the PhD that my supervisors want me to do.
That is brilliant advice. I hope every student on the planet that watches this vlog remembers that, because it is your project. It is about you. It's not your supervisor's project. I'm now going to test you both because I want to move you. Remember, we've also got audience who are staff members watching this as part of their supervisory training. So as students talking to staff, what are the deal breakers for you? What makes you uncomfortable? What makes you upset, lacking self-care in the behaviour of supervisors? So what do we do that is a deal breaker for you?
Timely responses would be greatly appreciated. I think with the previous two, that it was always something was greater than our half an hour per week to meet. So timely feedback, because the clock is constantly ticking, and as most international students not on scholarships know, so is the payment.
Yeah.
So, every 5 months you're like, what have I got out of this? I need to keep moving. So timely feedback, as well as just when you don't know, it's okay to tell students that, you know what, have you spoken to such and such in that department? Or, you know what, let's sort of work this out together because this is also new for me. And that transparency and honesty is wonderful. You don't have to hide. We're all human. At one point you were also a PhD student, and I think as a supervisor you would have appreciated your previous supervisors to be honest and nurturing in your growth. So those are even my two.
That's
things.
great. I've often described that, I think I did in the last vlog, that it's important supervisors are not brittle, that we actually respond, and if you offer us advice, we actually take that advice as well. So for supervisors out there, if this is an area of expertise, we actually talk about that area of expertise, and if Sunny or one of these interdisciplinary scholars move us over here, say, look, I have this area of expertise, think about these 3 or 4 names, but that's not really my strength. So maybe we'll talk to somebody else to help you on that component, but don't over-egg the omelette.
Oh yes, and it's quite easy to do. I mean, we all have egos, but who's going to check you if you don't check yourself?
That's shade. We were talking about shade before the blog commenced.
Yeah.
Right, to our staff.
I think what you said, honesty, is really important, and we all work in different ways, and I actually really appreciated, so in terms of timely responses, sending out something and possibly not getting feedback, and then one of my supervisors actually said to me, why don't we meet up and we'll go through your writing together, because that's how she works better that way, and she knows she's going to look at it and she can talk to me and do it with me there, rather than it going to the email inbox and just keep getting shifted to the bottom of the list. So that supervisor talking to me about how she would function better, how it would work better for her, really helped me, and then I don't feel like I'm sending things which aren't being read. So that honesty is really important, and working to your supervisor's strengths. And I think one thing I'd really appreciate is I turn off my phone when I come to a meeting. I would love it if my supervisors did the same for me, because of an interrupted meeting. Also, just a meeting that's just a chat can be very frustrating as well. But I think that we have also a role to play to manage up in that respect, and to have an agenda and to make sure that gets worked through for the meeting. But yes, I think I don't have much time with my supervisors. They're very busy people, and I would really like that time to be uninterrupted.
I wrote a book a few years ago called Digital Dieting, and that's one of my rules for supervision, is that if you're having an analogue meeting, so someone is actually with you, or digital on Skype, so hi to Anne and all our and Mark and our wonderful Skype-based PhD students, but that meeting is the priority. So for half an hour, the phone is in the bag. Yeah. We're not. I turn my phone on my desk down and off, the mobile phone, and if someone's with you, they've got 100% of your attention, and then they leave and you can do something else. Yeah. But don't have 57 things going on.
Absolutely. I mean, and the computer pinging away, new emails coming in as well, all of those things.
I'm getting agitated as you're saying this. So turn everything down, analog focus.
Yeah, that would be greatly appreciated.
She's good, isn't she? Last question. So you both did change supervisors, and your stories do have, I think, happy endings, which is fantastic. We love a good happy ending. But how soon after you made the change did you realise you'd done the right thing? Can I start with you, Bron?
Yes. I actually felt immediately. It took me a long time to get the new supervisors, so there was a time of despair and feeling lost. But when I had my team, I mentioned earlier how I'd actually had to resubmit the written component of my proposal because it wasn't set up how creative writing would expect. But they realised she has no creative writing supervisor, she wouldn't have known that. And I had lovely Dr. Lisa Bennett come up to me after my presentation and say, I think I need to be your supervisor. So and that was fantastic. And from that point on, things really changed for me. And you know what? Part of me, I thought, I have a feminist project. It's a feminist project. I actually thought, why was my primary supervisor male? I have an all-female team now. I actually think that is right for the project. And so changing need not be a negative thing. It can be extremely positive.
And so once that team was in place, you knew immediately.
Yeah.
Dr. Chivaura.
Stop.
Did you know immediately? 'Cause obviously there was a lot going on because Steve and I were moving states and universities as well, and so you were moving supervisors, you were moving states, you were moving institutions. You know, how did you manage that crazy December, January is what I'm thinking.
It was like euphoria. I can't explain it because I had known Steve for about 6 months before Tara came.
So he
on
was on Sonny's team, if I can just clarify. So as a number 3 supervisor,
Yes.
he was in your team.
However, when I just, arranged a meeting to see Tara and just say, look, I have finished my confirmation of candidature, but I'm being asked to research the philosophy of methodology. Is this right? In that half an hour, we sorted out everything I had concerns about. I left that meeting going, whew, if I did illicit drugs, this is probably what it would feel like. It just felt like, to use metaphors, shackled had been thrown away, and it was just from that point on. Although change happened, a couple of months later, I found out, we're moving to South Australia, which I love. South Australia, thank you for having us. And, we were just progressing. So I was used to change, but this was good change. And it just sped up the PhD process. I mean, from having 10,000 words to having 120,000 words in the space of 9 months. I think that just goes to show the team I had was definitely the right one.
And we knew it immediately. And I'm laughing at Sunny because when my current boss, the wonderful Rob Saint, who was the DVC research at Flinders, he phoned me, I think it was Christmas Eve, wasn't it, at like 8:15 in the morning, and I took it as head of school at CSU, took the call. And then you came in to see me, I think it was at 9 o'clock. Was it 9? So before anybody else knew, so before Steve actually knew. So Rob offered me the job, and then the first person I told was Sunny. I said, well, and I remember saying, it's Christmas Eve, what are we going to do now? I was just like, we're going. There was no sort of, where is Flinders? I was just like, yeah, I'm ready, let's go. And it's been a great move, and she's had an incredibly successful candidature and a great career that'll come from it. Right, now you can see why I invited these two great women, because they embody, the best of what Flinders does, clearly. They embody very interesting disciplinary perspectives, but also they're very strong, resilient people that have reflected on the bad stuff that has happened and how to render it good and positive. And I think you'll help students and supervisors reflect on their own approaches to change and enrolment. So I want to thank you both on behalf of the university for all that you do. You are brilliant, successful, and really inspirational people. So thank you for that, and I wish you all love, light, and peace. We're out. We're out. Did you just do something weird? What did you do?
Peace sign. My name does mean peace.
Does it? Oh, be careful. It was peace out.
I think edited.
You did it the wrong way.
Yes.
Welcome to our relationship.
Thank you.
You're brilliant. Hey, baby. Well done.
Yay.
You're